We're live with no issues, hopefully. I'll wait till everybody gets here. This is supposed to be a 2-hour live stream. It may or may not run 2 hours. Many times it runs longer than 2 hours, and sometimes it takes me forever to get to the topic. So if you're very impatient, you may not want to watch a live stream like this. I do Flintknapping, which means I make stuff out of rocks by chipping the rocks. We're going to be going over a certain stage of chipping rocks and making what they call arrowheads, although that's a general term. These are not specifically made for arrows, but sometimes they are. Sometimes they are. But they can be knife blades, they can be spear points or little dart points, or other types of tools like farming implements and that kind of thing. Because, yeah, there was farming in the Stone Age. All right, let's see. I think we have full audio and people are showing up already. So I checked the audio. It was okay. Now I have to try to enter the live stream here so I can see the chat. I'm checking the chat on a separate phone. Sometimes it'll be like an infinite number of phones, but that's just the way it goes. I can see the chat better when it's in this format. And I like to show that I'm looking at the chat because sometimes I can point to what I'm reading if I can't understand. Okay? All right. So get the introduction. I used to play introduction music, but the software I was using to play music was glitchy and stuff. So, the Livestream software I was using or the app, it kept glitching, so I quit using it. Now I don't have a way to play the intro music, but it's okay. Last night was stage 3. I'm going to update that here in a second. Well, I should do it right now. And then we'll check to see who's here. Today is stage 4. Stage 4 is edging and notching. Okay? All right. Yeah, we did the switch stage yesterday. If you missed it, you can always watch the live stream as a rerun. Yeah, you don't have to be here when it's live. In fact, I get most of my views after I post a live stream when it's not live. Okay, so it's going to be edging, and notching. Yes. And it's easy peasy. Relatively speaking. Yeah, it's not the switch stage. But some people have a lot of problems with edging and notching. So I'm going to go over how I do it in great detail. Okay, I've got 2 hours to do it. 2 hours minus like 4 minutes. It's been 4 minutes, yeah. Somebody gave me a super chat. I saw that. Where is it? 1999 super chat from JV. Software update for Music Fund. Awesome. Someone is paying attention. Thank you. All right, Mr. Jim is first. Jesse is number 2. Hello. Andrew Humphrey is here. Alan Cole is here. Flake Scars says hello. Lance McElwain says what's up. Stoneface is here. Obsidian Spears for everybody, says Mr. Jim. Does that have anything to do with pickle spears? Maybe. Alan Young is here. Good evening. Steve Salzgiver. Hello. Yeah, don't do this. Don't double tap. Chris Lithic is here. Hey, Dawkinstein. How's it going, Bill? Tom Brown says hello. Chris Cox says good evening. Feathered Frontiersman says hi, Pat. I finally got home at a decent time today. I'm putting the final touches on a sweet little obsidian knife. I will actually post this one. Sweet. Let's see. Chris Lithic says he's going to be lurking tonight. Yeah, what else is new? There's lots of people lurking. Ralph Sajak says, turn the pigeons loose. Oh, yes. Jeremy W. says, hi, Patrick and everybody. That's what I do. If I go into a live stream, I just say, hey, everybody. If I'll see you guys in some other live streams. If I don't say hi to you individually, it's because I'm trying to watch the video. I'm trying to watch the live stream video. So I just say, hey, everybody. Let's see. Explore Florida is here. Doom Scroller is here. What's up? Ronald Carbino. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Explore Florida says, hello. Hey. Okay, so we've got the whole crew just about. OG is here. I'm always here, just not mentally. Okay. Doom Scroller says, I just joined up. Hello from Glendale. Sweet. Dawkinstein says, hi to JV. All right, Lance McElwain says, I got my first ever gift box last week. Only took 33 years of napping to get one. Now I know how it feels. Feels pretty good. Oh, yes, it sure does. Yes, yes, yes. And I already got a gift of $19.99. Tonight is starting off rather well. Now, to continue from last night, let's see if I remember. I got a bunch of stuff here. We've been working on this set of stuff. What are these? Well, I guess they're preforms at this point. If it starts to become the shape, or if it starts heading toward the final shape, I call it a preform. So this was starting to head toward the final shape, but I'm not going to finish this one out on video because this material is too valuable. This is a Knife River Flint, so I'm going to finish this off camera. So I lessen the risk of breaking it. But I'm going to be doing these two on camera because the material is not as valuable. Yeah, that's like 10 times the price of these two. These two are fairly common here. Well, this one is in Texas. This one I think is a hornstone or something similar, which is not that rare. And this Texas stuff is not that rare either. It's heat treated, so it's it's one of them high grade things, but there's plenty of this. Okay, and then there's plenty of these over here, but I'm not going to reduce these large gray ones on video either, because I'm going to try to make some, reproductions or something out of those. Sell them in the auction. Everything that I make on video, with very few exceptions, will be available in the auction. I have an auction every Monday. Hey, $10 from Jesse. Cigar break. I'm down to my last cigar. Yeah, I got to get another batch. I always don't smoke the last cigar in my humidor. I get done at one cigar in my humidor, and I never smoke it until I get a new batch. And then I smoke that one first. Right? I'm trying to make it so that I only smoke one cigar a week. I want to take a week to smoke that one cigar. If I smoke it down like a half inch every day, it usually works. But I only smoke a half inch of it. Like, that's morning usually. Yeah, so I can feel all woozy all day, right? I don't know why I do that. Okay, so we're using this as a template for this edging and notching phase. And these are going to be the same size. I'm going to try to match these up, because they used to make these in sets back in the day. They didn't just do one-offs unless it was something special, like a ceremonial knife or something. Okay? They used to make these in sets. Now, I don't have time to make a whole set of 5 or 10 or whatever on video during these live streams, believe it or not. It seems like I spend forever on the live streams, but I don't. It takes longer to make a set than what I'm taking on the live streams. So I'm going to try to do these two tonight and get them matched to this template. Right? I think I barely have enough room. Now, if I make a mistake on this one and it gets real small, I'll just say, okay, we'll just live with it and then make this one match this one. I'm going to work on this one first. All right. This is easy peasy material too, so I'm not too worried about being able to, get the right shape on this one. This one is a harder material, especially for notching. This one's really good for notching. Okay. So if I do the hardest one first, and if it gets messed up, I can change the shape a little bit, whatever, and it's easier to match that one to it. Right? Just like they used to do back in the day. That's what I think anyway. So edging, what does edging mean? That means getting the edge thin. We've already established that it fits in the haft. Right? I got two hafts. I have to have the hafts. It fits in either one of these. All right? Depending on what we're going to decide on doing. This one fits better as far as the template goes, but I don't think I'm going to make the notches that deep, which is going to disappoint a lot of people. If it goes well, maybe it'll work. Okay. Enough for the preliminaries. Explanations. I have to have a long introduction just to satisfy myself. And I can say, if someone asks a question about something I talked about in the introduction, I can say, you didn't watch the whole video. You didn't watch it from the very start. You missed the explanation in the preface and the preamble. Now I know who watches stuff and who doesn't. Do I need the indirect percussion stick? I think I do, because there's some nasties. Lumpages on the edges. This is edging. So we're paying attention to edges, and we got to pay attention to the overall shape. I got enough so that I have enough room so that I can work on edges and not be too small. I got room all the way around. Okay. So I'm going to be taking some material off, using the previous explanations, using the methods that I previously explained. Okay, so I am going to go over a little bit of this again and be repetitive, but not as much as I was this past week. What is today? Wednesday? Because I did, Monday, Tuesday. I'm not going to explain as much as I did Monday and Tuesday, because you should have been watching the series. I don't need to keep explaining it. I will explain where it's different. Okay? The edging is different because you see how I'm grinding? First thing is I'm grinding at a 90 instead of grinding at a 60 or a 45. In general, during the second stage preliminary thinning, the angle that I use for the edge is like a 45. I'll look for 45s, and if there isn't a 45-degree angle on the edge, I'll try to create a 45, and I also grind at a 45. And then on the secondary thinning, it goes up to about 60 degrees. And then right now on the edging, it's like 90 degrees when I grind it. Why is that? Because the edge keeps getting thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. And these angles don't matter too much once it starts getting really, really thin. So I'm just kind of lazy and just do a 90. Now you can get really persnickety and get in here and grind in those angles just right. I'm not saying you can't. But what I do is I just grind it at 90s, and it works pretty much the same. But if you want to be extra super expert, expialidociously persnickety, you can grind it at those angles or whatever angles work for you. Did they used to do that back in the day? I think they did, because if you look at some stuff like the Cody complex points, the Edens and Scottsbluffs, you can see how they're very persnickety on the edges when they did their pressure flaking. So I think that they would take rocks and actually grind it at a certain angle in order to get those pressure flakes to pop out just right. That's my interpretation. And you can buy casts of artifacts. You don't need to actually buy a real artifact. You can buy plastic casts. All right, now, so I'm just doing a 90-degree grind. Now, did I learn this grinding stuff from the flake over grind guys? No, they grind their stuff a little bit different, I think. Besides, they have these different techniques where they can, instead of grinding it flat like this, they actually grind it so it scoops it out. They actually, instead of a 90 like this, let me see if I can do. I've seen some fancy flake over grind edging, and they have this, I don't know how they do it with a machine or something, some kind of grinding wheel. But on my edges, let's see, where's my pen? I have a bad habit of losing my pens. On my edges, they're like this. And it's just a 90. And let's zoom in on this. My edge is like that, just a straight 90 when I grind this. But on a flake over grind, some of these edges are like this, if they're getting fancy about it. Okay, they scoop it out instead of being flat like this. Sometimes I'll even do a round. This will be round instead, like this, and then like that. It depends on the stone of what works best. Okay? Where do I apply force? Well, it depends on how long of a flake I want. If I want a long flake, I apply force on the flat. And it's always at a kind of an angle. If I just want to, if I want to, this will pop out a bulb of pressure and then follow the surface. And it'll exit somewhere there. Or if you angle this a little bit differently, it'll go more bulb and then go further in. All things being perfect. It depends on this angle here of pressure or percussion. The pressure flaker can either be positioned this way or it can be positioned this way. You can pop the flakes off like this, or you can pop the flakes off like this with pushing, or it's the same tip right there where it's applied. You can press them off this way, or you can push them off this way. It does create a little bit of a difference in how far the flakes travel or how they travel. Now on this gives you an opportunity to put the pressure anywhere you want. Basically, you can do all kinds of stuff. Here you're kind of limited to, focusing your pressure or percussion on this flat spot. You can put some force there, but it's not as variable or persnickety as this. This allows you a lot more persnickety placement of the tool anywhere along this. Here you're kind of limited because you're not going to put your tool right on this corner. Now, is it an exact corner? Yeah, it can be. And you can put pressure on this exact corner if you really want to do it. And then you can try it out. This might work, but usually it's just in general, you put your pressure or percussion on this flat. Okay? On the flake over grind, FOG, they like to use this kind of edge. And they'll put pressure here. And this is like a 60. This is 0. This line is 0. 0 degrees. And that's like a 60. Okay, I don't know for sure, but it looks to me like this is about a 60 from this 0 baseline. Sorry about the non-technical drawing here. Okay. Just so you know what the difference between what they do and what I do. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing today on edging. We're going to be persnickety about how we do the edges. Now, if you see me cheating or not paying attention or doing something different or, not really doing what I'm telling you I'm doing, you're probably not wrong, because I will take shortcuts. I will be impatient. I will be imperfect. I will live with what I get. Sometimes I make little mistakes because I don't care. Yeah, But for this discussion, I will try to care. Yes. Okay? All right. How is it that I can do this stuff and not care? Well, I am very, very influenced by artifacts. My technique and the way I do it is highly influenced by artifacts. And when I look at artifacts, and if I study them too much, I start getting a headache. Why is that? Because it seems like they didn't care all that much. We're thinking that they would care a lot, but they didn't. They did all kinds of wonky stuff, and I don't know what they were thinking in some cases. Some cases it's thin, and then it gets thick, and then thin, and then thick, and then thin. It's not nicely tapered. Sometimes the bases and the stems are really, really thick. Like, I don't know how they were hafting these things. I guess they were using big, thick pieces of wood, which seems like it's counterintuitive. It wouldn't penetrate very well. I mean, all kinds of weird stuff. Sometimes the notches are not symmetrical. So what do? If the notches are not symmetrical, what do? They haft it to the side like this? Because this notch over here is deeper than that notch. Are they hafting it like this and turning the point this way? I mean, what are they doing? They just don't care that much? Or they put the stick in the middle, and even though the notch didn't reach the wood, they would say they didn't care, and they still hafted it that way. Who knows? We don't have enough examples to know. Okay? So here we go. I'm grinding it a lot because overkill is a little bit better than underkill. It's better to be too much as far as grinding goes. That doesn't apply to other things in Flintknapping. But as far as grinding goes, a little bit too much is better than not enough. Okay? Just as a general rule. Sometimes it will mess you up if you grind it too much, because you won't be able to get the flake to become removed or whatever. Okay? All right, so let's eliminate some of these lumps. Where are the lumps? Let's identify the lumps and the opportunities. Like, this is a good spot to hit right there. I'm going to use this indirect percussion rod, 5/16, file down to like an oval shape, so it's a smaller point than on the other one. See, I can do a rounded or an oval shape. This is a little bit smaller point than this one, just a little bit. It makes a difference because we're getting to these smaller type points, so it makes a difference. All right, so this is another good spot. And yeah, we're going to do below center line if we can. Sometimes we're right at center line because the center line starts to get very difficult to lower as it gets thinner. So we're going to be using a lot of center line pressure. And we can't always depend on below center line. But there are spots that are thick that I need to hit. Like I need to hit this going that way. There's little lumps and stuff, right? You can see the lumps? So I'll be hitting these different spots. And I didn't isolate these spots. They just happened to be there after grinding. I'm opportunistic. Now I can sculpt the edge to obtain special places. Okay? I can sculpt the edge to drop the edge and all that. But a lot of times I don't. I just opportunistically hit. Okay? So I'm marking places where I'm going to be hitting in the future to remove lumps. Okay? Most of the hits are going to be in the lower 2/3 and not up here. I can pressure thin this area up here. Okay? All right. A lot of people left right in the most important explanation. They left right where what amazes me is people leave during the most important parts of the discussion. And I think it's because they're not here for the napping. Don't leave during the most important parts of the discussion just because it think it's boring or something. If that's what's happening. All right. So let's see here. Yep. Nice. I'm just trimming off thick spots along the edge, and I'll show you what it looks like after I'm done. If you want me to explain the angles, you know, you missed that on the previous live streams. I did explain the angle that I'm using to hit, and it's different depending on the size of the flake. The angle that I'm using to apply force. Sometimes I'm at baseline, sometimes I'm a little bit lower, sometimes a little bit up. This angle is ranging depending on the size of the flake at this stage. These are just little bitty flakes with just a little bit of force applied to get rid of these lumps on the edges that are difficult to remove with pressure by comparison. I mean, it's not difficult, but by comparison, this is so much easier to eliminate issues along the edge. And I just regrind after I hit, see if there's anything else I can do. Sometimes I'll run a longer flake, and I'm going to run a longer flake here. Okay, so in this case, I've gotten rid of the major lumps and it's getting straighter, but I see an opportunity to run a flake, so I'm going to hit right there and run a flake into this area. And then, yeah, see, it's kind of lumpy or thick right there. I don't have to run a flake there, but it'll help with the notching to get this generally thinner. And it doesn't have to go past halfway. This is edging and notching. It's not thinning and notching. There's a difference. This flake doesn't have to travel very far. Same with one of these. They just travel this far. That's it. And it helps with the notching. Yeah, and I'm going to run a flake here about that far. Little flakes, just they're not going to run very far. Just to thin this out a little bit, because we're already at the proper thinness to fit into the haft. We don't want it too loose either. Okay, we want it to be just right if we can. It's a little bit loose, which is okay. Well, the glue will fill the gaps, but we want it to be firm. In a perfect scenario, in a perfect world. Yeah. So I'm just going to hit along the edge, get rid of lumps. Take some short flakes to make the edge thinner if I need to. Like this right here is a bulky area. So I'm going to grind this more and hit there. Know what I mean? This is a very persnickety stage. You can make it as persnickety as you want. But if you're in a hurry, you're not going to be able to do too much. Right? You got like 5 more of these to do if you're out in the field back in the day, and you got 5 more of these. You can't be spending too much time being too persnickety with these. If you want to know how they used to make them back in the day. Some people want to know how they used to make them, and that's part of how they made them. They made them in sets. More than one at a time. Now that flake went further than I thought it was going to go. But it's fine. Okay? They don't always go exactly where I'm hoping. I hit and hope. Hit and hope. You'll notice that on my videos. Yikes. And those bites taken out is an indication that the edge was too thin for the flake that I was trying to get. Yeah. Internet culture will tell you that those are made by certain types of tools. Certain material will do that. No. That's because the edge is too thin. Any material will do that if the edge is too thin. It won't break right where you're trying to apply force. It'll break further away because it's very delicate. This whole edge getting really thin, it'll just take a big part out of it. Okay? It gets very technical and very involved when you're talking about those ring cracks. I can go into the fracture mechanics of those ring cracks, but I'm trying to be simplified. I'm trying to simplify my explanation. In the process of simplifying, there is the negative or the drawback that I get it wrong on some level. Okay, but just realize that when you get a ring crack, in the majority of cases, it's because the edge is too thin to do what you wanted to do. Or you put your tool too high up on the edge. That will also do it. If the tool grabs too much. Now, some people go, aha, if it's grabbing too much, that means there's a certain material that grabs. Yeah, but like I said, there's other ways to do that too. If the edge is too thin, any other material doesn't have to grab it, we'll do that. Grabbing the edge is only one possibility out of many possibilities to generate these ring cracks. Okay? The fracture mechanics on those is highly complex. All right. I think I can do the rest of this edging with pressure. Now I got that little step in there. I don't like it. Let's see. Yeah, let's get rid of these steps. I'm not supposed to get step fractures at this stage. Yeah, it's okay. At least it's not a, well, I don't know if it looks any better. I was going to say, at least it doesn't look like a pronounced step fracture. It looks like more steps now. It's all kind of crunchy. Let's see. Sometimes you can take a flake and take that out. But anyways, too much focus on aesthetics. All right, so now I'm going to use a pressure flaker to go around. Straighten the edge and sharpen it. Not sharpen it yet, but straighten it out more. Okay? And in the process of straightening it, it makes it stronger. Because I'm also going to try to remove any little crackly areas. Those crackly areas can cause weakness. You don't have to worry too much about weakness because I'm pretty much done with the percussion stuff. So what I'm doing now is I'm applying force or pressure force right on the edge. And downward and inward slightly. Downward mostly, slightly inward. And I'm right on the edge. So on the paper diagram, what I'm doing is I'm doing this. And some of these edges are round. If you look closely, I guess if we take a microscope, we can see that I didn't file it perfectly flat. Even though I had the file in that position, it's not perfectly flat. It's rounded pretty much. So what I'm doing is I'm doing this. I'm applying pressure here, 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 depending on the size of the flake I want. If it's just a small flake, I can go downward like this. It just pops out a little one like this. This one will pop it out like this. This one will pop it out like this. Okay? It depends on where I want. But in general, what I'm doing is just popping out a bunch of, what was I doing? This, yeah, I was doing this edge here. So I'm basically just popping out whatever's a low spot. And then in between the low spots, I'm just kind of making the edge thinner. Yeah, where's my pressure flicker? I'm getting ready to sharpen it. There's one more grind before I sharpen it. But I'm making it thinner and more consistent. So I don't need to look at what I'm doing on this side when I'm doing this, because these flakes are just so tiny. You can look. Some people can't nap unless they look. Gotta look at it. Gotta see what I'm doing at all times, everywhere, and perfect. Another ring crack. The edge is too delicate. When it's too delicate and you put the flaker too high up on the edge, it also can remove the ring crack if I'm too high. it can do that ring crack stuff. I should pay more attention to the tip, right? I have trouble with tips because I usually end up with some step fracturing. I try not to think about the tips too much. They drive me insane. I've been trying for years to develop a technique so that I don't step fracture the tips. I think I've reached my psychological tolerance for being too persnickety. Anyways, so I do a pass. I call it a pass. Just flakes this way. Flip it over and do another pass. That's what I just did. I'm going to do the same thing on the other sides. Okay. And I'm going to look for areas that are low and just pick them off. That way I can straighten the edge. I want the edges to be straight. See how they're it's kind of wonky, so I just pick at it. I'll check it against the template here in a minute and see how much room I've got. It's kind of important to know how much the edging actually removes each time you do a pass. That way you can kind of figure out how many passes will it tolerate and still be within specifications. That is important. Why is it so important to be so focused on the pattern or the template? Because of the weight of the finished piece. You want consistent weights of the finished piece so that your accuracy at distance is improved. Close up, you don't need to worry about weights too much. If you're shooting an animal at close range, it doesn't matter all that much. But at range or at distance, and yeah, I hate to say this, but if you're in combat with these things, you have to be able to shoot at distance. These things were used not only for hunting, but for warfare. Okay? And I think stone was the preferred material for war points. Okay? All right. So let's see. How close are we? Did we take off a lot? We took off, no, not too much. It gives me room to sharpen. Okay? Now, how much is that exactly? I don't know. Let's see. Looks like 1 millimeter. Does this always happen? No, it doesn't always happen. Sometimes I miss. But I'm being very careful not to take off too much material. Right? It's like 1 millimeter. Or what is that in? It's like a 1/16 of an inch max, you know, before I sharpen it down to the perfect size. Sharpening at this scale, I think will take off about a 32nd of an inch, at least, maybe a 1/16. It doesn't have to be perfect, but, you know, you want to try to get everything as close as possible to the template size. Or if you have a point already made and it's your favorite, and you make it out of a special material and you never use it except as a template, there you go. You can match it as close as you can. And if you share your template with other guys, it looks like everybody is on the same page, but it looks like one guy made all the points, but several guys were sharing the same template. Yeah, so you never know if it's one guy making all these the same size and shape, or everyone's using the same template. Like they'll pass it around during the knapping. I mean, during the camp, during the hunting camp stage. Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's see. Let's start the notching. Since it's edging and notching, it's going to be corner notches. Now, these are expanding, and this template is made in such a way that it's going to be very, very hard to duplicate this in stone. I'm going to try my best. we'll see what happens. Yeah, if I can't match it exactly, we're just going to go with what I get. We're not going to try to match it exactly. Okay, so corner notch means I'm going to take off some of this corner, take off some of the other corner, so we can start. Yes, yes. Now, do I have to go over how to notch? I think I do, since it's notching and edging. I went over how to do the edging, so now I got to do notching. You saw what I just did, right? What I just did was I used the corner of the tool to pop out flakes to begin with, and then I used the front of the tool to dull it. If you don't dull it, it just crushes and makes little tiny bitty flakes. Gotta dull it a little bit to get bigger flakes. Okay, and use the corner. This is how I start the notching. Push downward. You can push inward too. Okay, and there are different ways to use notching tools. There's vertical ways to use this. I can use it by doing this. I'll show you. It's still using the corner of the tool and just pushing downward. You can pop out flakes that way. I'm practicing this currently, doing the vertical stuff. I'm getting a little bit better at it, but it's going to take me, days, weeks, and months to get better at the vertical pressure flaking. I'm working on my grip strength, my arm strength, because the problem I've had before with this vertical stuff is I would push a lot of pressure and then my pressure flaking tool would stick into the pad, and I had to pull it back out and stick in the pad, pull it back out. Having just a slight range of motion with enormous amounts of force requires not only strength in this direction, but strength to stop it. Okay? Okay. It's just a very small range of motion. Requires that you're pretty much just such slight movements with enormous power. That gives you knapper's cramp after a little while. Yeah. The other thing is vital is to not let this develop a burr or too much roughness or getting too much stone embedded in the tip. Gotta keep this edge fresh and thin. And you can call it sharpening it, but it's not supposed to be sharp like a knife. It's just supposed to be thin. As thin as it requires for the particular stone you're using. Okay? Some stones you don't have to grind it as much. Some needs to be almost as sharp as a knife. Okay? And it also depends on how narrow these notches are. Got to make this thin enough so that it can be narrow enough yeah, this is not going to be easy for me to drive these notches very far. Okay. We'll see. So as I'm driving these notches further in, I'm using less of the corner and more of the surface, or I don't know what to call it. I'm using less of the corner and more of this side, not but this. As I'm driving in, I start with the corner. As the notch gets deeper, I'm using this. As it gets even deeper, then I'll use this to pop out flakes. The beginning of the notch with this, and then intermediate notching with this, and then final notching with this. Very important, the way I do it. Vertical is different. This vertical stuff, you're always using this area here, just the corner and a little bit up. You're never using this part. You're only using this, basically the corner. Okay? But if you crunch it in like I do it, you use more of this edge. You use from the corner all the way to the middle. But if you're vertical, I'm finding that you're going to be using this, and some guys will even use this. So you'll have to sharpen or keep this edge fresh. How do you use this side? This is an advanced technique. You'll have to develop your muscles to do it like that, but you can push in, then push down using that edge. Push in and then down, and it can pop out a flake. I don't do it that way. I might do it eventually that way, but right now I'm just using the corner to push down and pop those out. But if you want, you can sharpen or thin this down a lot so that when you push inward, it actually dents, puts a dent in the edge, and then that dent provides that catch that can pop it out. You got to keep sharpening it. You got to keep maintaining the edge. That's why it's an advanced technique, because it's extremely persnickety if you use this edge. All right? Okay. Yeah, you gotta maintain it anyways, but just letting you know that there's other ways. And I am aware of those other ways. I don't use them for various reasons. I got my reasons. Yeah. So with tough stone, it requires an enormous amount of force and strength, but in a very limited range of motion. Okay? It's going pretty good, actually. But I don't want to count my blessings yet. Still got a little ways to go. Yes? Okay, good. Okay, I think that's it. Okay, I don't want to push my luck. That's as far as I'm going with that. Does it match? It's close. Yeah, it's close. Close enough. If I get adventurous, I might try a little bit deeper. But I'm just going to stop there. Yeah. We'll see. All right, so we're going to do the other side. Yeah, pretty much the same. I'm going to fix this up a little bit later to make it look a little neater. But I just wanted to get the depth on it. Establish the depth. Now, I haven't discussed the pad. I use domed pads. See how it's higher right here? It's higher here than on the edges. I don't use a flat pad, and I don't use a pad that flexes whatsoever. My pads do not flex at all whatsoever, and it's always higher in the middle. I call those domed pads. And when I'm pressure flaking, especially with the notches, it's always on a high spot. Always. And I never try to bridge. I don't bridge the notching into a cavity like that. I don't know how I do it, but as soon as I bridge it with the notching, it snaps it across the neck or snaps it somewhere. So I have to pressure flake it on a high spot. Does that cause interference with the flaking? Yes, it does. Sad to say, I interfere with my own flaking when I do that. But they don't break. I'd rather have crushing and step fracturing and incomplete flaking than a broken point. You know what I mean? So that's the way I do it. You don't have to do it the way I do it. Okay? All right. And some people say, well, all you gotta do is practice more and you won't break them. I've been doing this for 15 years. I think that practice is something that I've done a lot of already. Especially, I've practiced breaking stuff. And I realized that I got my limits. Yeah. I am trying to learn more in terms of notching. I'm not that great, but I have definite limits. And I try not to overdo my notching sessions, because I can get very persnickety, and I can get lost, so to speak, in the notching napping, and I can spend all day doing nothing but trying to perfect the notching and not get anything else done. And then I'm sad. Yeah. Because I didn't get anything else done. I'm just spending time, wasting time doing notching that it really doesn't matter all that much. All right. It's starting to stall a little bit, but I sharpened it. Maybe I can unstall it with just enough force. Yeah, like that. See how that dug in? When you make it sharper, that's another thing, right? I don't know if I emphasize that, but you can push it in and actually dent the front a little bit, and it'll provide the catch for the pop out. You can crunch the pop outs, but you can also catch the pop outs. Catch the edge. I'll explain that in a minute. I think it's worth explaining. Let's see, that's already dulled. I already dulled it. On this notching, you can catch and pop out the flake, or you can crunch and pop out the flake. Catch or crunch. Okay, let me explain the catch and crunch. Catch or crunch. I'm trying to simplify this, okay? It's very involved, very persnickety. The fracture mechanics are highly complex with the notching. Okay, but I'm going to just call this catch or crunch. Let's say that we got a bottom of a notch. How do I express? The bottom of a notch is pretty much the same as a bottom of a, or like any other edge. Okay, so this is the bottom of the notch. Hopefully it looks like that at the bottom of the notch. You get some material taken off of both sides. Okay, so it's like an edge down in there. See that? It's like a continuation, but down inside the notch. Now, when you catch, what you do is you push hard enough. This is the flaker tip. You push hard enough to cause a dent. This is a dent in the tool. This applies to antler or metal. You dent it, and then you press downward. Dent and down. Dent it first with pressure in, and then pop it downward. It pops out a nice, hopefully, a flake at the bottom of the notch. And see this little delicate area on top? That's what you're grinding off. So when you flip it over, it looks like this again. Okay, now with the crunch, what you do is your flaker starts here. And you start like near the corner, and it's down and in. You're using both. You're not using one first and then the other. It's a kind of a combination of inward and downward. And as you're doing this combination of downward and inward, it's going to crunch the edge. It's going to get all crunchy, and then you'll pop something out. This will drag down. This is dragging down. This is all getting crunched out as the tool is being dragged. See this? I'm going to put a little black dot here. This black dot. As this black dot moves, or the corner of the tool goes down, and you're doing this pressuring both inward and downward, it's crushing its way through. So there's a lot of little flakes that get removed. It's not as efficient as this, but it will crunch its way in. Okay? It will crunch its way in. I don't know if this is actually an effective diagram. But you know what I mean? You can actually hear the crunching. Start from here, right? Start with this. It'll crunch, and it'll crunch all this away. And hopefully you won't get step fractures right here. It'll be flakes that eliminate all that. This is the more professional method. Dent and then down. This is just crunch. Okay? You can say crunch and munch. Crunch and munch. You can crunch these in. I prefer to do a lot of crunching. I can't get consistent result with that. I actually get more consistent results with crunch and munch. Okay? All right. But, if you can dent and then push downward, it can yield some beautiful notches. There are other ways too, I imagine. And I'll check the chat. Maybe there's some input on that. Okay. Now, when you make this thinner, it focuses more force in one small area, which helps to remove flakes. Yeah, like that. If you can focus the force in a small area, you can push on a certain fat spot or a lump and get that out. But it's starting to stall. See how it's dimpling? Looks like dimples. That's an indicator it's starting to stall out. So I got like maybe one more pop out on the other side, and that's it. I won't push my luck. Yeah. Let's do the other side. Yeah, like that. And I'm going to, match the template, try to match the template with sharp terminations at the bottom of the notches. See how it looks kind of cool if you do a sharp termination at the bottom of the notch? Sharp terminations at the bottom of the notch, right? Try to match that. And let's see how we're doing. Close enough. Now we just need to make it look pretty. Yeah, we just need to work on some symmetry down here. And then we compare it to the haft. We're right there, the same width as the wood, which is the ideal situation. The neck should be the same width as the wood. Okay, we're about there. That's fine. Even if it's not perfect, right? Close enough. I actually didn't need to go that deep with the notches. Okay, and I like it when the notches are not crushed at the bottom. They're not crushed. Okay, now you can file the bottom of the notches to prevent your wrapping from being cut by sharp bottoms of notches. That's up to you. Yeah. On artifacts, a lot of times it's razor sharp. It's sharper at the bottom of the notch than it is on the edge on some artifacts. It's a mystery to me. I don't know why they did that. Doesn't make sense, but you know, that's why you get a headache that's why I get a headache when I look at artifacts. Okay. One of the reasons. All right, so we work on symmetry. I will check the chat. Just hold on. The lack of symmetry drives me nuts. Yes, it does. I have to admit. This is just downward force. All these flakes are just downward force, little bitty flakes. I'm just pushing on the top surface. Okay, that's good for now, and then I'm going to check the chat. Let's see what we got. Somebody's liking something. I see a bunch of little likes being generated down here. Let's see. Would the Notch-O-Matic work for that? The Notch-O-Matic is a different situation, but yes. But I'll have to go over that separately. The Notch-O-Matic is a different mindset because it's a punch and not a pressure flaker. I'm going over the pressure techniques for notching. The punch techniques are much more difficult to explain because you can't see what's going on. Okay? The pressure techniques are much easier to demonstrate. I'll do the Notch-O-Matic some other time in depth. Yeah. I got to figure out how to show you how it works because I can't even see what I'm doing when I'm using it. I got to guess. So I use the Notch-O-Matic on bigger items that if it messes up, at least it's not going to blow out the entire stem. This is such a small point that I don't need the Notch-O-Matic. But yeah, I mean, if you get a larger point, by all means, you just can't do the dent and downward technique. You can't. The crunch and munch and the dent and down, these don't work with Notch-O-Matic. This is pressure techniques. You got to keep that in mind. Okay. All right. Beautiful. Tried gemstones. Yeah, I've tried opal. Opal will nap well. Let's see. Limb to limbs. Hayes Prophet. I haven't seen you guys before. Looks awesome to you. Thank you. Thank you. James Brock. Let's see here. Ronald Carbino is here. Would your Notch-O-Matic work? Yeah, but it's different. It's, like I said, it's a punch technique. Let's see. James Brock, maybe because they use that bottom edge as a razor. I don't know. No, I don't think so. The interior of the notch on artifacts a lot of times is sharper than on the edge. I think it just didn't matter because they would use sinew, and sinew doesn't get cut that easily. Now, I don't know, they might have been using the bottoms of notches to cut cordage, but you cut like 3 pieces of cordage and it gets dull. So I don't know. I doubt that it was used for anything other than just wrapping. Limb to Limbs says hello from South Carolina. Awesome. Yeah, Limb to Limbs says, I feel like if I don't stay, I lose out on valuable information. Exactly. I know. Mike Mason says, oh, there is a double dent, I guess you would call it for notching, I suppose. You can do whatever you want. Somebody fell asleep watching a movie. Let's see. Sebastian says, hypersonic tracer biocenter. Holy moly, what is all this? Hey, Marty Wybe's here. Saying my live stream uploaded today. Awesome. Roger Anthony says hi. You guys are using turkey roaster to do stuff. Mike Mason says, I'm pretty sure I use both. The crunch is usually a finisher for me. Probably best front binding anyway to end with a dull edge. Yeah, for the bindings. If you don't want to cut your bindings. Let's see. What else is there? Marty says, I will send you your pointer out tomorrow, Patrick. Okay, awesome. We got a pointer that has the finger placement that I needed. Oh, yes. I got to be serious, though. We can't be joking around during these tutorials. Limb to Limbs. I don't want to kill a deer. I'm good. I don't have it in me. Yeah, don't worry about it. Just buy your meat at the grocery store. Let's see. Jesse says, Marty, did we find a pointer? Okay. Yes, we did. Yeah. Just go hunting, yeah. Figure out a way to go hunting for whatever. A lot of times you can hunt for stuff that's got no closed season, like rabbits. Most people that I know started hunting rabbits and squirrels and rodents and small game. Or stuff that doesn't have a closed season, like coyotes. But it's hard to kill them with a bow and arrow because they don't get close enough. But you can get close to rabbits, shoot them with a bow and arrow, and then you work your way up to larger game. Yeah. Robert Schultz says, I would rather crunch it than crush it, and Notchomatic is the wrong tool. I see. Let's see here. Okay, is that it? Limb to Limbs. I'm a tree climber. I know about cordage, man. It's got to be dull or it will cut it. No joke. Oh, yes. Hunt rats, says Ronald Carbonell. Yeah, but rats are smart. I tried to hunt some rats. There's no way. You've got to trick them somehow. Or bait them. It's better to trap the rats. I could never get a rat to stay out in the open. Whereas rabbits, yeah. Rabbits are dum-dums. For the most part. Yeah. All right, so what do we do? I'm just going to sharpen this. So it just needs one more pass. Let me take my glove off. It's not obsidian, so I don't need the glove on. The little shards are not going to dig in. If I get little shards in between the tool and my hands, I'm thinking I could thin it down some more, but I don't know. Thin it down some more with percussion, but nah. I'm just going to sharpen it. And the easiest way to sharpen is with a bevel, so maybe I'll just do bevels on each side. Yeah. And it's, I'm grinding it at 90. I could probably get in there and be persnickety and grind it at a better angle, but nah. And yeah, we got to grind it because, like I said, I got to be mysterious. People don't understand grinding, and it's okay because it's cool to be mysterious, right? Or no? Yeah, there I go. Not being serious. Okay. Everything has to be fresh metal. Fresh stone and fresh metal, right? So we look at the edge and it's not perfectly flat. It looks kind of rounded. And some of this, you can even see there's a little bit of an angle. Yeah, there's a little bit of an angle, which is good. I'm going to be pressure flaking downward this way, but I'm going to look this time to see if the flakes actually do what I want. I want it to bevel. The easiest sharpening technique is the beveling technique. Well, no, that's not true. The easiest sharpening technique is the one that Lava Blades uses. The guy that gets millions of views, he just pops them down like this. Pop, 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 pop. Straight down. Doesn't even look on the other side. That's the easiest. And I do that too. And you can do serrations like that too. You don't even look. But I'm going to do the next easiest where you actually look at what you're doing. And when you want to cut something besides watermelons and tomatoes. Yeah. Is the downward only method effective? Kind of, sort of. It can put an edge on there. But it's not going to do these little bulbs of pressure that I'm doing here. The bulbs of pressure actually scoop out the edge and cause a hollow ground effect. They scoop out the edge and thin it down. Now, if I can get this focus to work, see how it scoops out right underneath the edge? That makes it very thin on the edge. And you can feel the sharpness. You go back and you pick off the dull spots in between. And you've got a nice, thin, sharp edge. Okay, how do you pick off the dull spots in between? A couple of ways. It's best to sharpen the tip again on your tool, but I see a spot that needs to be thinned from the other side. Yeah, right there. So beveling is basically a hollow ground effect kind of technique. A little bit too much there. But you can see how those little bulbs of pressure are thinning the edge. They scoop it out. And you get a thin edge. See that? Thin. All right. I'm going to do the same on the other side. And then we'll sharpen this tool and do one more final pass in between all these to get rid of any dull spots that I see on the edge. Now on real artifacts, sometimes all they did was this. They didn't go in between and get those little dull spots. If you look on Dalton points, especially, they got this thing going on where it's just sharp and dull and sharp and dull. It makes a nice flake pattern. It shows the flake scars really well if you don't pick off those dull spots. See how it makes for a nice ridgy or something type of look. It's got little ridges. You got ridges like ruffles. I don't know. Maybe they wanted to save time. It's not I don't think it's as effective as being really persnickety about the whole thing. All right, so it thins down the edge by scooping out the material. See the concavities, and it thins down the edge. Now I'm going to sharpen this and pick off all those little dull spots in between. Okay, let me see. Sharpen the tip of this. All right, so I'm not going to look. I'm just going to pick off those little spots. In between. And making sure I don't put any serrations in it, because a nice smooth edge is actually better for penetration than a serrated edge. It's just slightly better. They're almost the same. A serrated edge and a straight edge are almost the same on the scientific tests. They've done tests on serrated edges compared to non-serrated edges, and they're about the same, with the straight edge being slightly better. All right, so I just picked off where I saw the dull ground edges. All right, and with the light, you can see how I'm going to shine a light behind there, and you can see that the very edge is very translucent, and that shows you that it's thin and sharp. And you can see now that these ridges in between are not as pronounced, but on artifacts you'll see that look. See how there's little flakes taken off those high spots on the ridges? You'll see that on artifacts. Okay, so let's see where's the light. On the very edge, let's see if I can show. See the difference on the very edge? It's very translucent. That's how you know it's very thin right there. Okay, all right. Now, what did they use for this delicate operation when they don't have copper? If you find a good piece of antler, you can sharpen the antler and do this. It will work like this with antler or a tough bone. Or they might have had little copper awls, because there are copper awls in the archaeological record, and they were thinking that they were using them for sewing, but you can use a little awl to do this sharpening bit. Okay, it doesn't wear down that much. You can keep a little awl with your stuff to do the resharpening or retouch. So that to me is the second easiest way to sharpen an edge, just beveling it. See how there's no persnickety napping on it? persnickety flaking on this side, but there is on this side. Flip it over, same thing. Big bold flakes pretty much, and then you get the little bitty flakes. See, big bold flakes, and then you get the small flakes. I think that's the easiest way to sharpen. And then you do that enough times and it starts to develop a twist. If it's thick enough. If it's a real thin point, it'll never develop a big twist. But if it's thick, and you do this enough times, it'll start developing a twist. Incidental. Incidental twist, not intentional. It's incidental because all you're doing is beveling over and over and over again. That's what causes the twist. It's not done so that this will spin better in the air. Okay, that's not what it's done for. It's incidental, not intentional. Okay? All right. So, how does it compare to our template? I think it's pretty close. Yeah. I think it's pretty close. Yep. So I took off that last amount of edge, right? One of the hardest things in all of Flintknapping is making these things to spec, to match a template, because of the inconsistencies in the stone and the tools and all that. It is not easy. So, just fair warning. There was a time where I used to do a lot of points to spec for clients. And that was like the most miserable year ever. I did it for about a year. And it was miserable. Because one little mishap, break off an ear or a barb or something, and then you got to start all over, and you spent more time than usual trying to match the template. And then you got to put it on the scale and weigh it. And then, it needs to be within a certain range. And that they did use templates back in the day. I'm convinced they used some kind of template for their points back in the day. So they were very good at Flintknapping, obviously. They did the hard stuff. They were doing some really difficult things. Even if the finished point doesn't look all that great, if they met the specs, like the weight and size and sharpness, the look of it doesn't need to be all that great. This one's 105 grains. 105 grains, not grams. Okay, so we'll see. We're going to try to match this to this. How much is this weigh? Right now it's 233. So we got to lose about 100 grains, right? We got to lose about 130 grains off of this one, which it doesn't matter too much right now. What that means, all that means is we got plenty of room. Yeah. So it's an hour and 24 minutes. Dang. I might not be able to match it that fast unless I do the speed napping and not explain anything. Okay. Let's see. What do we have in the chat? Before I do that, let me check the chat. Limb to limbs. I would have rubbed a stick on the ground and made a spear, and I would die. I'm a spoiled brat. Let's see, Jesse. I always wondered if they have used clay pressed a point into make an impression to save the size. Yeah, they can do that too. But it's you can't get the thickness. You know what I'm saying? You can't get the thickness from a clay impression. But yeah, I would just keep a very special arrowhead for my template, made out of nice material that's very rare, and then tell someone to make sure I get buried with it And that's what I would use for all my arrowheads. That's a very special template. Yeah. That's what I would do. Let's see, Mike Mason. I can explain their similarities, Marty. They both give me hope. Let's see. Someone, Ronald says I'm a master napper. I don't know. I'm still learning this stuff. But thank you. Limb to limbs. Yes. So I left some comic books, local laundromat. Okay. Yeah, at our laundromat, we have a lot of free books sitting in there. You can just take them home and read them and bring them back. It's like a little library at the laundromat. Or you can keep the books. They're free. Jamie says, just glue the dust of the diamonds to the arrow tips. What kind of glue are you using? Super glue is good, but it's not super. Even though it says it's super. Patrick might be able to explain the difference on root beer chert and Knife River Flint. Yeah. Root beer chert is a chert, and I think Knife River Flint is actually an agate. That's what it feels like to me. As a napper, Knife River Flint naps like agate rather than flint or chert. Yeah. If I give you a piece of Texas flint and you compare it to Knife River Flint, there's big differences. The Texas flint, you can generate big, long flakes on a flat surface, whereas Knife River, you get step fracturing, just like on an agate, like an unheated piece of high-grade agate. And yeah, I'm talking about Brazilian agate and other agates. Knife River Flint is more like an agate than a chert or a flint. That's how I would describe it. Let's see. It conserves material to bevel sharpen as opposed to biface sharpening. Oh, yes. Let's see. Let me see. Anything else? KR says, awesome point. Looks like a Kirk. Which begs the question, do you think pine trees are just resharpened Kirks? I don't believe the pine tree range is as large as a Kirk, however. I don't know. I guess some of them might be. I'm really not an expert on that, so I haven't studied those kinds of points as much as I have the Texas stuff. So it could be. I don't see why not. Pine trees have deliberate serrations in many cases. So they might be they might be a different cultural manifestation rather than the same type of points, just resharpened more. Yeah. Let's see what else. That's it. Sebastian says, by the way, all we got are from sticks and stones. Yes, yes. Okay. All right, so let's see. I'm going to do some speed napping on this and see how it goes. Yeah, let's see if I can get close to this shape. We got plenty of room. So hopefully they don't mess it up. The first step is to get it to fit in the haft. It don't fit. Oh, that's nice. Now this is speed napping, but I can't go too fast, especially right here on the base. Let's see. We almost got it. So I set up these edges. If I work one step ahead, which I didn't go into detail about working one step ahead, but if I work one step ahead, it goes a little faster. So I can set up these edges for future removals in kind of a methodical way, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. So when I took off these big flakes this way, I was kind of looking at to see how it was affecting the edge. So I was not only paying attention to removing big flakes here, but I'm dropping the edge a lot also for the next round of flakes on the other side. And since I know the middle is already pretty much there as far as the thinness, I just got to thin the other sides, and that's it. Yeah, that's we're there as far as thickness goes. So now we have to bring it down to the right shape. Okay, all right. Yeah, I've got plenty of room. Yeah. Now it needs to be the same size so you can have good accuracy at distance, at long ranges. So it's worth removing the tip to get the right weight. See, I knocked the tip off to shorten it. It's worth it if you're trying to shoot at range or at distance. Keep these consistent. Seems like a waste, I know, but it's not if you have to shoot for accuracy. Doesn't do any good to have a beautiful long point if it's going to be much heavier than your other things that you're shooting. You're not going to be able to hit anything with it, or not hit in a good spot. Shot placement is everything. How do I know this? I have gone hunting before with bow and arrow and stuff. I just don't do a lot of it. But I'm trying to get back into it. Family obligations had prevented me in the past, mainly financial. I didn't want to spend any money on deer leases. I spent a lot over the course of a couple of years. I spent a lot of money on deer leases and time. Time is money. I spend a lot of time working on bows and arrows at the expense of my family. So I couldn't do very much of that. And I still don't do very much because it can get expensive. I don't have my own property that's large. I got friends now that I know that have property. So I don't have issues with that anymore, but I used to. I used to not know anybody because I kept to myself. All right, so what do we got? Are we getting there? Let's see, I still got about 25 minutes to go on the live stream. We're getting there pretty fast, actually. So I got opportunities to go hunting this year. I still haven't finished my bow and arrow set. I'm supposed to be already practicing with it. Already practicing. I got my target material set up. I haven't set up the target, but I've got the material. I'm going to use foam and I'm going to make some duplicate arrowheads out of aluminum. You know, duplicate of the shapes in stone. I know what kind of shape arrowheads I'm going to use, but I'll make duplicates out of aluminum so I can shoot them at the target without breaking my stone ones. And aluminum is about the same weight as stone, so I can get the grain weight exact by shaping the aluminum. As an example. Some guys shoot their stone arrowheads at foam targets, and it does work. I just don't want to break any of my stone arrowheads. And with my luck, I'll break them all. Have to make a new set. I don't have time for that. So what am I doing? I'm just going through the stages. I had to thin it down, so there was a switch stage in there. We're pretty close. Now, I've got to keep track of this. It's supposed to be like, this is probably more dense. Some of these stones are more dense, so they're going to be like 10 grains heavier for the same basic size. I forget what this was. 105, okay, so we're getting down there. This is 136 now. We lost quite a bit, so I can't lose too much more off of this. How do I judge? I don't. I just got to keep weighing it. Chip it, weigh it, chip it, and weigh it. You lose about, I don't know, like 4 grains when you notch. 4 or 5 grains just from notching. So I gotta pay attention to that. Other than that, though, I gotta keep weighing it. It depends on the size of the point too. Like on this size, I'm estimating about 5 grains lost to the notching. I can probably do the rest of this with pressure. Maybe. Let me see. No, yeah. I'm not going to be able to do it with this. So, pressure, yeah. Let's see. So, the hard part's over. There's a little bit of damage control with this pressure flaking. I can see areas that are way too thick. Just slowly pick at everything. Pick at everything. Just pick. Nothing major. So I just picked off the fat spot at the very tip. And I'm going to try to create a nice taper. It's too fat on this side. This side's pretty flat, actually. So just minimal amount needed to be removed from this side. But the other side is thicker, so I got to be aware of the edges. I got to move the edge this way to get rid of that lump, but that's later. Let me just flatten this other side first. Ah, yeah, this material is cooperative. Yes, it is. Heat treats are my favorite. Yeah. Every time I do a heat treat, I reminded it is my favorite. It's yeah, I don't know if it's more favorite than the black butter, but it's my favorite. Yeah. It'll always be one of my favorites, the heat treat stuff. Now, not all heat treats are good. I got to put that little disclaimer on that. Some people will say, yeah, I heat treated it, but it was junk. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Yeah, sometimes it turns into junk. I know. Just got to heat and hope. Nothing's guaranteed. Just like hit and hope, you got to heat and hope. Okay, good. I was worried there that I was going to get more step fracturing. So you guys remember how I discussed these edges right there? I don't want to be napping up here next to the camera too much. This is not easy for me to do without hitting the camera, and I can't really see. Oh yeah, let me put the other glasses on. These are higher magnification. I can probably see. Yeah, I should have put these on earlier. This is so much better. Get out of the words. Yeah, like that. Just pick at it. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, like that. Cool. Yes. Okay. Oh yeah, we're almost there. I'm not going to take too much more off the tip, if any. I'm going to start the notching. I can, instead of taking it off the tip, I can just take some off the base. See that? I can just take a 1/16 of an inch off the base, or maybe not even, just a little bit, and then start the notching. And check the weight. Make sure it's symmetrical. Come on. What am I doing now? I'm just preparing for the notching. I noticed that these were a little bit too wide. The corners are a little bit too wide, so I'm taking it back a little bit. Okay. Now I can start the notching. I got a little bit of room, but that's good. It allows for mistakes, or it can accommodate some mistakes if I got some room. And it's nicely tapered. I don't have to worry about tapering it anymore. There's no big stiff fractures and stuff. There might be some thick spots I can get rid of later. But now I'm doing the notching. See if I can finish the notching quickly. Okay. This is a nail pounded flat and then ground down. It's not pounded flat too wide though. I don't like to pound it too much because it changes the toughness. I like to have it consistent. So I do minimal flattening before grinding it. Okay. And it's just a modern pressure flaker with set screws. Modern pressure flaker, plastic. You're going to make sure this whole thing remains thin. Yeah. Yeah. So on that one, I pushed in and used the dent and downward force. But now I'm using the crunching munch. See, when you use the crunching munch, it's very flakery. When I do the nice pop outs with the push in and dent and downward force, it's a little bit different. Longer flakes. So I use a mix of both techniques. And to dull the edge at the bottom of the notch, I use the crunching munch. Lower the edge to do the next pop outs. It depends on how it looks, how much force I use. If it's like that edge was very low. I did not need to use very much force for that. But this one here is like almost at center line, so I'll have to use more force, but that's okay because I want to try to get a big flake to pop out to thin that down. Yeah, like that. Luckily, it didn't take out that barb. That was a little bit too much force, but it worked out. I got lucky. I didn't take out that barb. I pushed a little bit too high up here when I popped that out. It was supposed to be right in the middle. So that flake almost wrapped around, took off that barb. I got to be careful with that. I got to go push right in the middle. That'd be the safest. Yeah. Still not exactly in the middle. I push a little bit toward that side. That's okay. Did I do it on purpose? I kind of did. I saw that I was too worried to push it exactly in the middle, so I went a little bit to the side and pushed down. You have to go by feel in many cases. Okay. It hasn't stalled yet, but it's getting close. As long as I get a good pop out on this next one, I'm okay. Yeah, like that. As long as there's no cracks. Sometimes when you do those intense pop outs, you get a crack. And I don't think I see any cracks, which is good. How do you prevent cracks? By not notching. That's the only way to prevent it. It's no guarantee. If I told you a technique, it would be no guarantee. Every technique has a disclaimer. There's no guarantee that it'll actually work. In Flintknapping, every technique has a disclaimer that says technique may not work. Your results may vary. And your results may vary a lot. Very varied in some cases. Good enough. Are we getting interruptions with the live? Let's see. Feathered Frontiersman, do you think talent disappears over time? My abilities are starting to come back. Yeah, your talent can disappear over time. You can get rusty. Yeah, or what about falling out of practice? Yeah, it comes back. It's like any sport. See, Flintknapping is a sport. You can get out of practice. I'm not kidding when I say Flintknapping is a sport. Some want to call it an art. That's fine, but it's a sport. Yeah. You can call it anything you want, but it's still a sport. Mm-hmm. That's the way I see it. It's my channel. I can say that. It requires both physical and mental health to do this well. Yeah. Now, you can have a handicap, but that doesn't mean you're not healthy. It just means you have a little bit more difficulty. As long as you're able to make the adjustments and improvements in strength and coordination and muscle memory, you're healthy enough to do it, but you got to be healthy enough to do it, just like any other sport. That was kind of scary. It was scary because it flaked when I didn't think it was going to flake. Sometimes when that happens, it means it's about to break. If it flakes too fast, it might be because it broke. Luckily, in this case, no. We're doing okay. We're almost stalling it, but I think we'll be all right. So the rule is, if the notch is more narrow than what you're trying to nap into, if it's more narrow than the thickness, you're going to run into some problems, or it's going to take a lot of skill, or both. The notch ideally should be wider than the thickness you're notching into. That's the easiest. The notch needs to be wider than the thickness. That's the easiest way to notch. If it's not, then you're going to have problems. Of course, if you're an advanced knapper, you found ways to get around that and figured out how to notch something really thick. It usually takes a lot of concentrated force. You can overcome it, or you just do hundreds and hundreds of points with narrow notches on thick material. You just get the required practice. It's either technique or practice or both. Sometimes you can practice with the tools that are not actually that great and still get good results just because you've done hundreds of them. The saying that you're only as good as your tools, it does, yes, apply to flint knapping. But you can also make doo-doo with what you got, and sometimes it comes out all right. Yeah. So let's see. I just need to work on symmetry now. I think I got it. I think I got the depth that I needed. Let's see. Yeah, we got the depth and the. It's not too much deeper or not too much more narrow than the wood. It's pretty close to the other one. Let me just check the weight. We had to check the weight periodically. I think we lost about 10 grains. We should be about 120 right now, or 115. Let me see. I'm just guessing. 115.5. So we got about 10 grains to go. Those 10 grains probably is what I'm going to lose in the sharpening. Yep. Okay. And I'm going to bevel, yes. But first I got to make sure the sides are straight. Everything's nice and straight before I bevel. And the surfaces are not too bulky. Make sure the edge is straight and make sure the surfaces are smooth before I start beveling. Okay. I'm going to take off a couple of percussion flakes off of this side. Yes, yeah. Yikes. Okay. I use percussion when I don't think I can do with the pressure. Yeah. $112, $113. So I can only lose 10 more grains. I use a lot of force on that. I guess that's okay. Yeah, so much for perfectly smooth. And so it's, yeah, I don't know what I did. What am I doing? I was trying to thin it, and I ended up step fracturing it. and messing up the symmetry. Okay. I'm finding that I'm sweating at this stage, and it's not even a sweat stage. I'm just hoping I don't mess it up. I want the edge to be nice and sharp. All right. This edge is getting kind of wonky. I made the mistake of taking too much off of this edge because I thought it was lumpy, and it turns out it wasn't that lumpy. I'm going to try to get rid of those metal marks on it. Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking there. Okay. Because I was supposed to leave that with bold flakes, but somehow I got caught up in thinning. I lost track of what I was supposed to be doing, I guess. Anyways. This side is not technically beveled. I'm doing a bifacial sharpening on this side. Anyways, let's see. I bet you I'm down below 105 grains. $106. Okay, we're lucky. Let's see what this says. 105.3. Okay, close enough. There you go. They're within a couple grains. Yep. I like it. They fit in the haft. They match the template pretty well. Yeah. This barb is kind of long, but making it asymmetrical, but it's all right. I do need it. I can sharpen it. I do need to sharpen these. I think I sharpened these on that one. Yeah. Just a little bit of sharpening on the barb tips. Yeah, that's it. I usually do that last anyway, because if you leave the barbs a little bit dull, right, it helps to prevent the very tips from snapping off. Okay, so I just wanted those barbs to be pointy and sharp. Close enough. What's important is the edge up near the tip. So I try to scoop it out with the beveling. This edge, it's pretty well scooped out. But I scooped out both sides. On this side. Right here, I was scooping it out. Anyways, looks like it might be slightly curved, but no. Yeah, it might look slightly curved, but I think it's the beveling. Anyway, that's it. I think they're matched. Okay. Mm-hmm. 2 hours and 7 minutes. That's not too bad. Not too bad. Okay. What do we got? Very nicely done. Thank you. Thank you. TJ is here. You missed it. I did some template napping and matched them up. I think that they ended up like 105 grains or 106. All right. Yeah, like some pricky omen points. Yep. Let's see. Yeah, there are asymmetrical points in the archaeological record for sure. Mark Ori, I'm still wondering about the custom fishing rods, fishing hooks. I look forward to seeing every night. Thanks, Patrick, for your sharing with us. You're very welcome. Yeah, I looked up actually the custom fishing rods. Yeah, $250 is like the starting level for a custom fishing rod. They go up from there. I'm in the wrong business. Oh yes. Does anyone have experience with shooting asymmetrical points or asymmetrical? Slightly or uneven different shape on the other side. Does it affect flight much? No, it does not affect flight much at all because it spins. If the arrow did not spin, it would affect the flight, yes. But since it spins, that spin evens it out. Okay? If it did not spin at all, then yes. The answer to the question is yes, it affects the flight. But since it spins, it does not affect the flight. Very good job of matching the templates. Thank you. Thank you. I want one. Can you do special order? No, I don't do special orders. They'll be on sale in the auction. I have auctions every Monday. They'll be on the auction on Monday. Yep. Along with a bunch of other stuff. Just look at my previous videos, my previous auction videos to get an idea of what I offer. Okay? All right. And you can see how they work too. Greg Shelton says, Pat, very educational tonight. Good. I'm glad you think so. I'm glad it was educational. I like it when it works out. Can I do a birch bark canoe next? Oh, dang. There's actually some good videos on YouTube on how to make birch bark canoes. There's at least 2 different good video series on that. I would just look up YouTube videos on it. It would take me years to get up to that level of skill. Red Lemur says, my snap and half technology seems to be pretty reliable. Yeah, I guess that's one sure thing. You're going to make mistakes for sure. Everyone makes mistakes. That's like the one sure thing in Flintknapping. Okay. Mac Bales, late night tonight. Found a roadkill fawn with beautiful spots. I had to skin it. Awesome. I'm glad it did not go to waste. Okay, is that it? So I'll show you what people who are just now cruising in, because I know that they're just now cruising in. To wrap up the series, let's see, edging and notching. I also did these. What is it? I did the final stage. I wasn't supposed to do the sharpening, right? I'll have to do something tomorrow night on the sharpening. Go more in depth. Where is here it is. With sharpening, damage control, and persnickety, yeah. But I went ahead and did all that also tonight. I did the final sharpening, right? The final finishing. I did the sharpening, the damage control, and the persnickety. So I'll go into more of that tomorrow night. I wasn't supposed to finish it yet. Okay. So I was supposed to do stage 4 edging and notching and not do the sharpening and the weight matching. Wasn't supposed to do that yet. Oh well. What do they call these points? These are just corner notch points. There's many similar points in the archaeological record that are corner notch like this. Yeah. This is one of my favorite styles. That's why I made this template. I made some templates of my favorite styles. So if you want to know what my favorite styles are, these are 3. These 3 are my favorite styles. Okay? So I made that one there. And this is just squared off. It's easier to cut these out like that. But yeah, it's just expanding notch, side notch point. And then, I don't know what you would call these. This is just an expanding stem. This is a side notch with a concave base. This is a side notch with a straight base, straight sides. These are my 3 favorite types nowadays. I used to have other favorite types, but those are now my favorites. Okay? So yeah, this is some of my favorite stuff here to make. If I'm just going to make stuff that I like doing and that's second nature pretty much, I'll just make some of these. And it's pretty stereotypical, right? When you think of an Indian, Native American arrowhead, like when you see pictures of these things and artists' renderings, they're very much like this style. So it's easy and intuitive to make these. Okay. And best of all, they actually work. Yep. Good night, everybody. I'm going to call it a night. AM Outdoors says peace. Yep. Let's see. How about some ground stone basalt celts when you're going to make us some of those things? I don't know. I have no idea. I got an air filter. So now I can go crazy with dusts. Yeah, I got an air purifier filter cleaner. Cost me a ton. But yeah, it has adjustable speeds, so I can have this whole shop cleaned out, the air in the shop cleaned out in less than 30 seconds. I checked it out. I know the volume of cubic feet per minute and everything. And I know the cubic feet in my shop is really tiny. You can clean out the shop in 30 seconds. Yep. That's what I'm going to do. It won't be running during videos though, unless I'm going to try it. I had to get a heavy duty extension cord for it. But once I buy that tomorrow, I'm going to set it up in here, and I might run it tomorrow on the video and see if the fan noise is going to be a problem. Because I really need to start filtering the air. I breathe way too much rock dust. I don't want to run into problems. Okay, so we'll see you tomorrow night. What's tomorrow? Is it Thursday? And then Friday, we'll be home free. We'll do some bird points. Start on our regularly scheduled programming. Do Bird Point Friday again. Thursday's supposed to be challenge night, but I'm going to go over sharpening. There's many different ways to sharpen. Well, I shouldn't say many, but there are at least 4 different ways to sharpen the edges. I'll just go over that. Yeah. Okay, let's see. I'm looking at this. Oh, I know what I was going to do. I was looking at the calendar. Today is Wednesday. Okay. So tomorrow is Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow night, guys. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.